Hi, I'm Mary Cross and welcome to the Building Bliss podcast. Today's guest is Alison Blackler, who I'm very pleased to have on. She is a mind coach, public speaker and published author of not one but two books, I believe. Right. So very excited to talk to Alison. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So can you give us a bit of background of how you got to where you are now in life?
So I suppose for me, I can take you right back to my childhood, and I wasn't confident at all. When I look back at myself, I was quite chatty, but I actually didn't really understand myself, and that's partly to do with the way that I was parented. And I suppose I started to ask questions of myself, and this is the internet, so I was asking questions of myself. Is this it? Is this what I'm going to do? And I, on my own, set off on this journey to try and understand a bit more about myself. Fast track to sort of mid-20s, and I decided to train as a counsellor, as a therapist. I didn't even know that I was going to be training to do it as a business. I wanted to train because I wanted to understand myself. I felt like I needed to, there was something in me that needed to do that. So I started on this journey, and I was working in the NHS at the time, but in a more administration role. And once I got to counselling college, suddenly things just all started falling into place. I was like, oh, okay, so I understand myself, but then I realised this was it. This was my bliss.
Yeah.
I realised that people are what I absolutely love. And then I've kind of gone, I suppose, full circle in a way, and then I've then done different types of therapy, different types of coaching, different types of sort of human behaviour, and that's spanning 30 years now. I worked in the NHS as a therapist, I worked in different specialties, and I left the NHS 14 years ago and set up my own business.
Right.
And that is kind of a parallel, because my own journey is running with everything that I've done. And I'm really, I like to talk about that. I like to talk about the fact that, it isn't easy.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, here I am today, 14 years into self-employment.
I think, is that quite a common thing with counsellors and therapists, that I might be speculative, but it's mainly people who perhaps want to understand something in themselves or maybe their own family's mental health that draws them to do that?
I think so. I think there are sometimes there are a certain type of person, I think you have a desire to kind of understand, but also to help. But I think what I'm always mindful of is that, you can see people who that's what all they're wanting to do is to sort of just be the, I don't want to say do-gooder, but trying to kind of help others. And I think there's a balance for me about that. But yeah, definitely, I think all of my friends over the years that are in this field definitely are curious. I used to joke on about being a bit of a change junkie. I always used to see almost like the next layer of the onion of, well, I could work on that. I don't have to feel like that, because I think that's what's really interesting about humans is so much of what we're doing is we think is just the way it has to be. It's just unconscious.
Yeah.
And it's just the way we are. And I like to challenge that. I like to say, well, do you have to have it like that? Does it work for you?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, what do you want to do?
Yeah, and I think we need more of that. And I think, as you say, going back 30 years pre-internet, we had so little opportunity to be able to go outside what we knew and understand perhaps ourselves, didn't we? But now there's so much out there on the internet, and obviously you've got your social media tribes that you can actually communicate that to a lot of people.
You can, and I think for me, all of that is amazing, but we do need to be careful, because some of that is causing some of the problems for us all now. We are in that space where we are looking at others. We can see what others are doing, and that can cause problems. So people are comparing, people are measuring themselves against somebody else, and actually that's not really healthy.
Yeah.
So when I think back to what I used to be like, I didn't know. Apart from my own circle of friends and my own family, you didn't know. You didn't really know. You had the media, and that's obviously whatever you were fed there, but it wasn't like it is now. So for me, it's brilliant that we can access so much more, but it's also danger.
Yeah, it comes with
big, a trap And I think that's where some of our challenges come from, is that we're not being ourselves because we are obsessed with what everyone else is doing and then comparing ourselves, and it's a danger.
Yeah, I've just listened to a really interesting podcast with, I'm going to call him Dr. K because I can't remember his full name, and he's written a book called How to Raise a Healthy Gamer. It's all about our addictions to technology. But he said the problem is we lose our sense of identity, and that's probably the underlying thing that a lot of people aren't realising when they're engaging with social media and technology. So then when you want to make a change, you don't know what it is that you want to change. You're like, oh, well, do I want a Brazilian bum lift, or have I just seen 3 people from Love Island? So it's very difficult to make a change from a point of, well, who is it that actually wants the change?
Yeah. And I think we fall into a trap. You know, as humans, we want to be in the troop. It's innate that we want to be liked and we want to be similar. But really, we need to be ourselves. So if you're doing what everyone else is doing, because that's the trend at the moment, you're probably moving yourself away from who you are and what choices you want to make. And I think, again, this is where we've got this movement of marketing, very clever marketing, that implies that if you haven't got this, you're no good. It's just no good.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that moves us seamlessly onto our 5 pillars then.
Ah, lovely.
So the 5 pillars of bliss are bravery, laughter, inspiration, spark and success. So starting with the B for bravery, because I think it takes bravery to be yourself. But I'll ask you, can you pinpoint one moment in your life that you think is your bravest?
I think the thing that pops up is, I mean, I could feel like I look back at my childhood and my younger years and think, wow, you know, navigating what I was trying to do without any idea of what I was doing. I think I did, and I think we all do, share bravery moments. But I think for me, leaving the NHS is a standout moment for me. I worked in the NHS for 24 years. I'd never worked for any other employer apart from my Saturday job in Boots. Had a permanent post, a security, a pension, everything that feels right. And more or less overnight, it wasn't quite an overnight, I just decided I was leaving. And I didn't really have a business set up. I just knew. Yeah. I just knew that I had to do it. And it was massive. And it was 14 years ago. So it was in a bit of a crisis time. You know, when I look back again, I mean, that was my naivety, you know. I think that back in 2010 there was a bit of a crisis.
Oh yes, like credit crunch, wasn't it? Yeah,
and I just decided to leave my job and just go for it. But you know, I've never looked back, and self-employment is amazing and difficult, all mixed in equal measures. The harder times, you know, you don't know where your security, you don't sometimes know where you know what's going to happen next, but you're doing it.
Yeah.
You're driving it, and that for me is brave, but you are in charge.
Yeah.
So I think having the control or the choices, I think makes the bravery almost like, no, come on, you know, get this. But there's so much that gets in our way. You know, this is some of the things that I like to talk about and help people with, is the stuff that gets in your way. You know, some people listening today might be wishing that they could leave their job and set up their bliss, their business, and I know you've done that. There's so many things that'll be getting in the way, and some of those might feel like they're real things, like financial, but a lot of it's just us. A lot of it is the barriers that we put up, and we think that we can't do it. What will people think? You know, I mean, if I listened to, in my bravest moment, if I listened to some people that were around me, they thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
And if I'd listened to them, I might still be in the NHS.
And that's a common theme. There's a few people who've had a big life change like that, and everyone around them's like, what are you doing? This is madness. You're leaving everything, you know. Yeah. But in you is that, because that's what was the thing that, what made you actually say, right, I'm writing my resignation letter? What was there one moment, or was it a slow build?
It was a little bit of a slow burner, because I knew that I was going to go, and I reduced down a day. So I went down to 4 days in my main job, and I think that was almost me being in the departure lounge then, because I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I like this. I could see that I was, I could start to see what I could actually achieve. But I think the other thing for me, and I love, I'm a big advocate of the NHS. We're very lucky to still have what it is, but my values are being challenged as well by the way that it was. What I signed up to and what was happening was different. And I felt like, one of my top values is making a difference, and I felt like I couldn't do that anymore because of the restrictions. But when you're working in therapy, and it's the same now, it's heartbreaking that people have to, wait for so long to get to see somebody and if you need help now. You need
if
to
you're
get
in a crisis.
You need it now. 6 months and then be told you can have 6 sessions. And there was other things. I was working in safeguarding as my last job, and I felt like people were losing sight of the patients, and that's not because of them. It was the way that the system was going, and I think for me it was almost a bit of like, I'm done here. I couldn't advocate like I wanted to. So it was a little bit of a slow burner, but I remember reducing. I remember going back in, and my colleague who used to organise the Christmas party, who loved organising things, she used to say, I wonder what we'll do for the Christmas. I won't be here. And she's like, don't be silly. Of course you will. I won't be. And I left that summer.
Yeah. So people do expect you to just be there, don't they? But I think it's hard with an organisation like that. Is people might say, well, stay and change it, but you can't fight a system that big, can you? That's that ingrained as one person. Yeah,
I think that was the thing for me, and I think the idea of it was time for me to go and try something different, and I needed to do it. I mean, if I think back to my story around not really believing in who I was, I needed to do this. I needed to show that actually, do you know what, not to particularly to anyone else, but to myself, that you can.
Yeah.
And that in itself, and that story, I have written 2 books. My former self would never in a million years have thought that I would be able to do something like that. I've created a business. Never in a million years would I thought I would have been able to do that. But once you start kind of shedding off some of the internal chit chat and some of the challenges that we all face, then you can start to go, do you know what? Why not?
Yeah.
Why not me?
Give it a crack.
Yeah.
So you said you were quite unconfident as a child and young person. So is it safe to say that you've got braver as you've got older?
Definitely. I mean, just being able to find yourself, it helps you be brave to be yourself. And it sounds so crazy, doesn't it, that we have to almost allow ourselves to be ourselves, but it's true. So many people aren't really being their true selves, and I definitely wasn't. I was worried about what everyone else was trying to do, things to get love. I mean, I didn't know what love looked like as a kid, so I would be putting myself in situations that was not necessarily right for me. And just being okay with you, it is not easy. And I think there's a lot of noise out there that implies that it's really easy. Just be you.
Just be yourself.
Just be yourself.
Yeah.
And it should be the easiest thing in the world, because what else can you be? But we're not. We are bothered about society and what people think. We are bothered about our loved ones and the impact that it's going to have on them. And there's so many layers of complication around being yourself. But I think once you find that, and I know laughter's going to be our next thing, but it's not taking ourselves so seriously. Just be you. If you want to wear something that's a bit crazy, why not? I love seeing people. It fills my heart with joy when I see somebody who's just being a bit different and getting it, and I just think, go, love it. I love it.
And we need that more than ever, because I think especially young people are terrified of standing out, aren't they? Luckily, my daughter's a teenager. She's very individual. She loves designing her own clothes, and I don't know whether she's picked that up off me, because I have quite a eclectic wardrobe, shall we say. This is quite plain for me today. But I think trying to instill that in our young people, because that peer pressure is so dangerous, isn't it? And I know for myself that I was subject to that when I was younger. And if you can build that inner belief, then you're not as susceptible to that I am. Yeah,
definitely. You can be comfortable being you, which means you'll push your own boundaries, which, because I'm always sort of challenging the safe zone, the comfort zone. If you're comfortable, you're not growing.
No.
So you've got to put a bit of you in there to be able to do the stretch, to be able to get a bit uncomfy, which will avoid, the human brain will be screaming saying no, don't do it, but you've got to be able to do that. So if anyone's listening or watching this today and you're bobbing along, cruising along, being comfortable, you won't be growing.
No. So what do you do to do that for yourself? What little challenges do you do so that you keep pushing yourself?
Yeah, I love pushing myself. I mean, I think I did say before, I'm a bit of a change junkie, so I look for opportunities that are going to push me, and I always find that you learn so much about yourself in this moment where you're like, I don't think I can do this. But actually when you've done it, everyone always says they've dreaded something, and afterwards it's like, oh, it wasn't as bad. That is your bliss in there. The bit that said, oh my God, I can do this. I mean, last year I did a walking challenge, which I've never done anything like that before. It was the Yorkshire Three Peaks, and physically, we walked for 12 hours solid. Never done anything like that before, and I learned so much about myself. And about resilience, and I thought I knew quite a lot about stuff, but it was incredible. It was life affirming to actually say, do you know what, I can do that. And there was times where I was walking along sort of saying to my legs, come on, you've got this. I was getting every trick that I've learned I was doing on that walk on those 12 hours. But oh my goodness, the sense of achievement was incredible. And you don't have to do anything like that. It could be something much smaller, but it's going with it. And from a brain's perspective, even if it's a little bit smaller, your brain still can celebrate if you allow yourself to do. And that's something that people often miss. They say, well, I can't be pleased with myself because it was only a little walk. It was only a little.
I sat on a coffee shop on my own.
Yeah, exactly. No, celebrate it, because that's how you build that ability to be able to go to the next thing, is by being happy with, I've achieved that. I've been on this. I mean, I'm a accustomed podcaster now, but that back in the day last year, that was a new experience for me. And putting yourself out there and knowing it might feel a bit is okay.
Well, you're a public speaker as well, aren't you? And I grew up doing public speaking with the Speakers Club, and it's people's biggest fear. And I used to see people, it was something, a really important event, someone going away or the wedding, and they were terrified or they wouldn't speak. And I was like, you're really going to regret that when you think, oh, I wish I'd said something. And I was like, but it's such a big fear, isn't it, public speaking, that fear of looking foolish.
Well, you know what, it stems back to childhood for most people, and it stems back from the experience that we all have from reading out at school. So we've got to remember that we were learning to read, but we were being asked to read out in front of our friends, and we dreaded making a show, people laughing at us, getting it wrong, being told off by the teacher, all of this stuff that happens. I mean, what age is it that we start to learn? 5, 6,
7.
It's a big deal. You've not long started school, and suddenly you have to read out in front of your friends. And that's where it all stems from. So our brains think, oh my God, I'm 6 again, and I'm gonna get laughed at. And if we undo that and just be mindful of, it's not that. I'm an adult now, and I can do this thing. And it's not as easy as just saying that to yourself, but that's the bit we just need to remember, that that's usually where the fear of public speaking comes from for most people, or they have had an experience that has happened. But for most people, when you say that to them, they're like, oh yeah. Because I can remember trying to work out which paragraph was going to be my paragraph and then try and practice it. But my friend was reading the paragraphs before, and you can't do it.
No.
So you'd be like, by the time it came to you, like, oh it's such a pressure. All children go through it.
Well, I think as well, I mean, my daughter suffers from mutism, selective mutism, and I think a lot of that was hate being put on the spot, and it is that fear of people laughing at you, isn't it? And it's a very primeval thing to want to protect yourself, and your ego's like, oh no, I don't want to expose myself. So you want to
withdraw, and that again, when we understand that, then we can start to think, oh, okay, it's okay. It's like a habit. It's just like you brush your teeth holding the same hand. It's the same idea. You can start to gently, respectfully kindly challenge it.
Moving on to laughter then. So how important is laughter to you in life and in your coaching?
I mean, I think it is the root of so much. I think we underestimate how powerful it is. I think as humans, especially adults, we do take ourselves too seriously, as I said earlier. And I think being able to find either the funny side of something that hasn't worked out, or purposefully going out to look for something that is going to just make you feel that joy. And I think what I notice when we're in that space of feeling, having fun or laughing, is the connection that you get. The shared connection of just being able to see the funny side, to collectively, if something happens, being able to just all have a chuckle about it. It just takes, it's literally like a pressure reliever.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I think we need to more actively, I'm often reminding people if they're feeling a bit low, go and find something that makes you laugh. I've got a couple of go-to videos that absolutely, it doesn't matter how many times I watch them, I literally am laughing my head off. Yeah. And I'm almost laughing before I've even turned them on, because I know what they're going to do for me.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's a gift.
Yeah.
And I think it's a gift that we sometimes forget to use, because it's just there, we can have it. But it's the being so serious bit that I think we miss something.
Yeah. And I think, well, I've probably mentioned this a lot now on the podcast, but the humour cliff. So kids laugh about 300 times a day or something, and then when we get into our 20s, 30s, it drops to about 6 or 7 times a day. And one of our other guests, Jodie from the Manifest, was saying that she had personal laughter as a personal KPI. So she'd be like, oh, how many times have I laughed today?
I love that.
And I was like, well, that's a really a good idea to do. But it is such a unifying thing, and obviously as a comedian I see that, and I love that, especially now we're back in comedy clubs, not on Zoom, that shared experience. It is, you come out feeling absolutely uplifted, don't you?
You just feel amazing. I mean, there's nothing better, is there, than that, where you literally can't stop laughing. Yeah. And I love to watch people who are doing that. I was at something the other day, and it was in a restaurant, and there was 3 girls behind the counter, and they were absolutely wetting themselves, and I was loving just watching them, and whatever it was, I've no idea, but they were literally like, and it was infectious.
Yeah,
I felt good watching them, and I wasn't even involved.
Yeah.
So I think we just need to be able to tap into that much more than we really do. It's a resource.
Yeah.
And I think we need to see it as that.
Yeah. So what are your go-to videos? Are they comedians, or are they people falling over? That has been quite popular on the podcast.
Do you know, I've got 2 that were going round in lockdown, and one of them is a guy who is using things around him to keep himself fit, and he puts a bit of washing up liquid on the floor, and it's honestly it's absolutely hilarious. And my other one is it's a call in from to a BMW garage. It's in South African comedian does a call centre thing, and he talks about his BMW, and he talks about it only works night drive and day drive and night drive, and it doesn't go anywhere when it's in night drive, which obviously is neutral. But the girl that's answered the phone, she's so professional to start with, and then you can hear her, she's literally
losing.
Oh my god, it's just the funniest thing. And then he talks about the S, because it's obviously an automatic, and he talks about the R, race. He says the race drive, and he says, but I hit the fella, because he obviously goes behind. Honestly, you need to listen to it. I'll send you it. It's really, really funny.
Yeah, love that. So in your coaching then, obviously you work with a lot of business leaders, don't you? So do you try and instill some humour in them? Because I think you were saying that you help people be better managers, and obviously humour is a great tool for that if deployed correctly. So do you use that?
Yeah, I think just being lighter. I think when you look at leadership and you look at some of the sort of management workshops and tools out there, they're all very serious again. They're all very like, do this next, do this. And actually, you know what? Take off all that pressure. and let's have a bit of fun. You know, my workshops are very experiential, and we have laughter.
Yeah.
We have like light bulb moments where it's like, oh gosh, you know, don't take yourself so seriously. Be humorous. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm, you know, I'm not like yourself, Mary. I'm not. I wouldn't call myself a comedian at all. But I think I can often spot things that just need to be just talked about and just raised, and often they are things that we can just be. Do you know what? That's okay.
Yeah.
And it's okay for it to have been like that.
Yeah.
You know, using things that go wrong. You know, if you I don't know, your flip chart leg just suddenly drops off, you know, don't be mortified, make fun of it.
Yeah.
Make you know, which is what I would do. You know, if I sometimes, like a lot of people, have a problem with a bit of tech, you know, and instead of being all flustered, just be humorous.
Yeah.
And just take that pressure, and almost for me it's about showing people how to do that. Just do it yourself in the moment.
Yeah. Well, there's such a belief that if you are in business or in the corporate world that you have to be a particular way, and I know I really fell into that mode as a young lawyer of being deadly serious, and people probably didn't really even know what my true personality was like at all. I always say, you know, my one woman show's actually going to be about my double life. It's going to be called Double Crossed, and that's the extent to which I'd put myself in this corporate box of, well, I can't make a joke because this is very serious law. But it's perhaps just showing people that, no, you can be a human.
I think so. And I think just breaking down some of that rigid, you know, belief that and it's changed. I mean, you know, in leadership, I'm talking to a lot of businesses around how to lead the next generations, because they will not be led as we all were, where you did what you were told, you didn't question it, you were probably bullied a little bit, and you definitely didn't speak up. You just did it. They're not like that now.
No.
So I think we've got to think about how do we help that scenario, and I do think that less pressure and more light, if that is humour, but certainly more light approach to things, and a more human approach. You know, connecting with people on a level where there's some level of fun breaks that them and us.
Yeah. Well, there is, I think, a massive generational shift that no one's really probably got a grasp of yet, because I know I speak to a lot of people my age and older, like, oh, young people have got no resilience, we'll come in at 9 and work till 5 and that's it, that's my hours. I'm like, but is that wrong actually? Because I mean, I've always worked longer than I should have done. Maybe that's got me to where I am, but really, is it better to be saying, well, no, that's my hours and that's what I'm doing?
I think you raise a good point, and I think what I'm observing is, you know, so you're right. You know, nobody challenged anything. You just did what you were told, and you probably worked way too many hours. So we needed to change.
Yeah.
But I think we've possibly changed a little bit over here, where people are, you know, the word resilience is something that's been said a lot. And, you know, have they got resilience, or are they just more vocal about their needs? Are they just a bit better at saying, well, actually, I don't want to do that?
Yeah.
So we're interpreting that as they haven't got any resilience, but are they just making good choices? However, I do think there are some that are literally not getting it. They're not getting if you've got a job to do, you need to do it. Because I do listen to businesses who are quite concerned. How do they run their business? But how do they make sure that they look after their team? You know, they're trying to be a good employer. They're trying to be a good leader. They're not trying to put pressure. You know, when someone uses the word stress or mental health, they're panicking because they don't know how to sort of navigate it, because they're not used to having people who say, I can't do that because of my mental health.
Yeah.
So we needed to swing.
Yeah.
And I'm a big advocate for people looking after themselves and making sure that they speak up and blah, blah, blah. But I think we need to possibly just come here and help people be able to learn how to make that change, really, or make that commitment.
Yeah, it's just developing skills. I'm just reading a book about toxic resilience, which is very much that, well, we just soldier on, don't we? And I think that's definitely our generation.
Yeah, that's dead.
Even as a child, you're praised for for quietening down if something's happened, for stopping crying, and that's not necessarily a good thing, because that's more about suppressing emotions that need to come out. So, as you say, I think we're at a pendulum. I think COVID took everyone to a certain point, didn't it? Because you had a lot of people working from home.
Yep.
And then that change of having to come back into the office, I think, has affected a lot of people. I don't know if you've seen that with some of the companies you've worked with.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, again, it's that what we're used to, you know, businesses never used to have people working from home, rarely. And if you'd ever asked it, I mean, I did used to ask businesses before the pandemic, before we even knew that there was going to be a thing called the pandemic, you know, what's your thoughts on people being able to work from home sometimes? Oh no, couldn't possibly trust them.
They used to say to me, oh, you're working from home today. That was the thing, because I did used to work from home quite a lot. And you're like, no, I am actually working. I probably do more than you.
Yeah, exactly. But the people are like, oh no, you can't trust them. You know, they'll be putting the washing out and they'll be doing this. So what if they're putting the washing out as long as they get the work done?
Yeah.
So obviously they didn't know how to manage that. And I think now there is a mixture of things that need sorting out. So, you know, being able to trust people, they know that most people can be trusted to go and do a good job because they want to do a good job. So that was the shock. I think for a lot of firms it was like, oh yeah, they do work really hard. Yeah. Because they want to do well in their job. They want to feel like they're succeeding. Yes, you'll have some people who don't, but you'll always have those, the sort of disengaged people. That they'll always be there.
They'd be just wandering around at the office if they were in the office.
Exactly. They were disengaged anyway. But I think we've got to navigate this new way of working. I still think there's businesses who are saying, oh, they're not in, so we can't work with them. Well, you're going to have to, because it's here to stay.
Yeah.
We won't go back to everybody being in unless you were in a sort of production type thing. We won't.
No.
You know, and there's advantages and then there's disadvantages. But it's interesting that you sometimes, I'm noticing with some firms, they've not wanted to put pressure on people coming back in, but actually the relatability with team members is missing.
Yeah.
So they are encouraging them, and I'm working with one firm at the moment, and they were all working from home, and they're all back in now, 2 days a week. They're all back in, and the connections between each member has started to change.
Yeah.
And I think there's something missing there, because it can be really lonely.
Yeah.
We are, at the end of the day, we're social beings, aren't we?
Yeah, especially for young people actually living on their own.
Yeah.
Might not even have a partner or whatever. So they're literally staring at their four walls all day, every day. Don't meet, you know, another human being unless they go out and get a coffee. And I think that hybrid is probably the solution, because you do get that. I see it a lot, obviously, in construction with architects and offices like that, where people are listening and they can pipe in, or the younger people are actually learning from the conversations, and I think that's obviously what goes, isn't it, with
Definitely.
the home working.
Definitely, yeah. It's a mixture, I think.
Yeah. So I'm going to put you on the spot now.
Go on.
Have you got a favourite joke?
Oh gosh. I'm rubbish at jokes. I always give the punchline before. What's my favourite joke?
I've had quite a lot of corny ones and like the old, ones from the olden days.
Yeah, it would be an olden days one. Oh gosh. Favourite joke?
I've put you on the spot.
You have, yeah?
Yeah, we'll come back to that.
Come
See if
back to
one
that.
comes
Okay,
through.
I'll try and think of something. Favourite joke?
So if we move on to inspiration then, so who or what are your biggest sources of inspiration?
I mean, I'm inspired every day by people. I think generally we are all navigating this thing called life, and there's little pockets of inspiration just all over. And I think if you can lean into that, you almost don't need to be looking for your big gurus, even though I do have people that I follow. So I think for me, that when someone's been brave, or someone's just doing something little, or they've noticed that they've done something little and they're achieving that I feel inspired by that. So I'm always sort of watching for, where people are, what they're doing. And I love it, and I think there's something about being able to cheerlead with others. I get inspired if I cheerlead somebody else, even if it's all going a bit horribly wrong for me.
Yeah.
So if it's all going a bit horribly wrong for me, I will seek out something it might even just be on socials or whatever, that somebody else has achieved and I'm cheerleading. I love doing that. But I do have some people that I really admire in the sort of in the field that I'm in. I love Brené Brown. Yeah. I'm inspired by her. I love her work. I love her realness. She's done some amazing research which has given us some fantastic information. I love her. And I love Wayne Dyer.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He is amazing, and I've read every single word he's ever written, I think, and just speaks normal, true truth.
Yeah.
I like people who just talk the truth. They don't buff it up and make it look like it's easy. They just say, yeah, this is my reality, and this is how it is. And I think that's where I'm always more inspired by people who give the truth, not this false ideation.
Yeah. Well, that's very much what Building Bliss was about, of me going on my own healing journey, but then seeing a lot of content that was very, I'll call it wafty. I won't be any ruder than that, but you know, a lot of people wafting around in white and everything being quite hunky-dory, and it just made me think that's not real. And I know I've been through the healing process, been through therapy, that it's quite a mucky process and difficult at times, and sometimes you just need someone else to be going, well, this is a bit shit today actually. And you just need someone that you don't want it all glossed and varnished, do you?
But I think that's pressure. I think glossed and varnished is the pressure, and I think that's part of the problem. You know, like I said before, social media and the internet is amazing, but it's also painting a picture, or can paint a picture, that isn't real.
And then that makes people feel worse, doesn't it? Like,
Because then they think, well, I can't do that,
Yeah.
so I must be rubbish. So then I'm self-beating, or I'm looking at other stuff, and now I'm thinking, well, what's going on for me? And it just annoys them.
Yeah.
It's just a noise in your head that's being created by you looking at something that you think is real, and it's not.
Yeah. And then you're in a downward spiral, aren't you?
Yeah.
Because then you just scroll more and more because you feel worse and worse, and then it's very hard to get out of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a trap that we need to pay attention to. Look for inspiration on social media, but looking for comparing your life to their life, because that's the other thing. Even if somebody is sharing, you know, my story is where I'm now compared to where I started, is I'm a different person. But even looking at, you know, if you were looking at what I'm doing, if you're thinking, oh, well, I can't do that. But remember, I've got a massive backstory. I've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
So we've got to remember that you might look at somebody and think, wow, they're doing amazing. I'm nowhere near them. They've been on this journey. You just might be a little bit further down the road.
Yeah.
See yourself where you are. See yourself where you are, rather than where they are.
Yeah.
Because I might look like I've got it all going on. It isn't always easy every day, but also, oh my God, I have been through the mess.
Yeah.
It's messy. I've done it.
Yeah.
And I like to say I'm living proof that if you do the work, and I think you're saying the same for yourself,
Absolutely. Yeah.
it is worth it.
Yeah.
But it's not easy.
No. And I think it's that overnight success phenomenon that people think, and like,
Oh, that's
no.
where people are being sold a lie, aren't they?
Yeah.
You know, come on my weekend course for £5,000, and you know, I'll make you the most confident person in the world. No, you won't.
Yeah.
Don't waste your money.
Life hack. Yeah. One day.
It drives me mad.
I think, yeah, that's the big thing. I mean, for me, is that it takes effort, but it's worth it. But you have to acknowledge that some of it is pretty boring, but it's effort.
But it's
in
relentless.
the long
You're
run,
changing a habit, aren't you?
it will serve you.
Yeah, it's a journey. We don't get there. You know, as trained as my brain is, I'm still learning every day.
Yeah.
I still have stuff that triggers old stuff. In fact, I've had something this week that's triggered a really old stuff. It's not as damaging because I can see it now, so it doesn't hit me as hard, but I can still like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Sometimes you don't realise, do you? Creeps
It's
up
all
on
still
you.
in
You're
there
like,
because your brain's job is to protect you.
Yeah.
So if you've had an experience, it will still keep reminding you because it's in there.
Yeah.
It's part of who you are.
Yeah. So I think that moves us on then to how you'd like to inspire others with your message.
I mean, I think it is that. It's, you know, if you see confidence in someone else, if you see growth in someone else, or you know, if people can see that in me, know that it's a journey to get there, and it is 100% for anybody to get. I genuinely believe that you can have whatever it is that you want.
Yeah.
But it is a journey to go on, and if people could see, and people who've known me for many years, you know, when I was in the NHS, I was a worker, and I look at how I am now. You know, I'm an out there. I'm a doer.
Yeah.
I'm not just if somebody sees me as an inspiration, then I want them to know that, for them to see that they are inspirational, because they're seeing something positive to say, well, actually I want a bit of that. But it's also staying in your own lane, do it your way. Because I have navigated so many things trying to getting myself to date, and some of it wasn't right. So I like to think, can I fast track people a little bit? You still have to go through your stuff. I can't fast track you that much. You can work with someone like me to clear some of the internal challenges, but you have to go through it yourself. Unfortunately, like young people, you'd love to be able to cushion them to stop them doing it, but they'll have to have heartbreak. They'll have to learn how to manage disappointment. They'll have to learn how to, all these things. We have to learn how to do it. But I think if people can fast track, just maybe shave off a few years, giving a look back to all the years that I've been back and forward in one of my books, I call it the resit class. You're back in the same situation, like, why does this keep happening to me? And there's massive learning there. There is a reason why you're not picking up something that's you're putting yourself back in the same situations. So I like to think, if I can inspire somebody to do it, to actually believe that they can have whatever it is they want, and then to know that it's a journey.
I think that's really important as well, that journey shifts over time, because I know for myself certain things have really resonated at certain points, and then all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, that's not, but that's perhaps when you've leveled up, and then you're like, all right, so now the next step is something different. And I think it's perhaps people get a bit think, well, I've gone down this path now, so I have to stick to this, whether that's a Buddhist path or a particular person they're following. It's understanding that your journey shifts every time you change.
I think so. I think you meet people, you watch people, you are inspired by people. Take what is right for you from that, and then there might be something else now. If I look at my direction, gosh, it's certainly not straight.
No.
It's been an interesting journey.
Well, that's the joy of life, isn't it? As we go along.
Definitely.
Moving on to spark then. So found doing the podcast that there's a bit of overlap with spark and inspiration. So I asked people what spark means to them first, and then how do you get your spark?
Ooh, that's a lovely question. I don't think I've ever been asked that question before. What's spark? Ooh, I think spark is, for me, what's coming up for me is it's that energy that goes into an idea or something that your heart says, I need to do this. So it's something that might feel a little bit out your comfort zone, because it's going to be something that's really exciting. I think that's what I would say when asked that. But what a great question. I've been asked that in my whole life.
That's good.
Right.
So what gives you your spark then on a daily basis? What gets you out of bed?
I mean, I think it is people. I mean, it sounds a bit like, oh gosh, that sounds such an obvious answer, but I think for me it's seeing people be brave. It's seeing people who are prepared to push themselves, but not push in a hard way, almost, and stop pushing yourself in a hard way, but push yourself in the right way. Be innovative, be out there, do you. And whenever I get a message from somebody to say, I've this has happened, or I've not managed to do this, or whatever, it's just the best feeling ever, to just think, wow, something, that conversation we've had or an intervention I've done has made that much of a difference. And it doesn't have to be that much as in massive, it's just that much. And that much is just the gem that could just take people. And it's a joy, it's an absolute honour to work with people, for them to be open with me and share whatever it is that's internally that's not going, which that's bravery, and then for them to start to say, do you know what, I'm going to do this differently. And that's what gets me going every day.
And even the fact that they've recognised it, I guess, even if it, however small it is, the fact that they've picked up on it.
Well, that's probably one of my biggest focuses, is let's make focus on the little stuff, because actually they all add up. The subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between you achieving a master's and being really pleased with some piece of work here. You can get the same feeling from that. So we miss a trick. when we don't go, do you know what? That was great. Well done, me.
Yeah.
We miss a trick we could do them all day. You can make great cup of tea. You just pause and say, good cup of tea. Your brain will be like, but we don't do it.
No.
We only say, oh, I can only be pleased with myself when I've completed this massive piece
Epic
of work
thing, yeah.
or this massive thing. And what about all the stages in between? Because if you think about the way that we are being trained at school, we didn't only get our feedback when we passed our GCSEs.
Yeah.
We got praised all the way along.
Yeah.
So we knew. So that's what we've been used to, and then we become adults, and we only praise ourselves when we'd finish something massive.
Yeah.
What about all the bits in between? What about all the things? So for me, it feels like we need to pay attention to that.
Yeah, and I think it's like taking a compliment as well, isn't it? But yeah, I'm doing something called Rise Reflections at the moment, where you pick out 1 win for the day, 2 of your strengths that you've used, and 3 gratitudes.
Nice.
And that's really, yeah, because I'm probably, especially when you work for yourself, think you haven't really got anyone to say well done.
Yeah,
Pat on the
exactly.
back.
You have to do it yourself.
You do have to do it yourself, and you do have to go, actually, yeah, I have achieved something there, or yeah, I did very well there. So I think it's definitely something that we need to keep fostering, isn't it?
We do, because your brain is crying out for it.
Mm.
And if it's not there, if we don't actively do it, whether you're writing it, saying it out loud, saying it to a friend, if you don't, your brain will fill in the gaps. And it'll fill in the gaps with old noise.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you didn't get around to doing that. Oh, you're not that good.
Mm.
And all the noise that we've all got,
Yeah.
it'll start doing that. So if we actively do you know what, this and this and this I got done and I'm really pleased, or I'm really grateful for this, you're not going to be doing the other, which is filling in all the gaps.
Yeah.
That isn't necessarily going to serve you.
And it makes you much more in the moment, I find. Like, I've been really enjoying, with it being better weather, I've been making my coffee outside and sitting outside, and I've been so grateful just for that.
Lovely.
Putting my coffee pot on the barbecue and sit, and I'm like, but I don't think I necessarily would have appreciated it quite as much if I hadn't been in this mindset of constantly being aware of gratitude and the nice things that are happening in the moment.
But look at what you're describing. You feel topped up, you feel good, you feel ready to start your day, and you've just done something that you would have done unconsciously and missed all the good stuff.
Yeah.
You'd have had the coffee,
Yeah.
but stood at your kitchen side and
Yeah.
not and busy looking on your phone or something while you were doing it, and you didn't get the thing. So you still had the coffee, but you didn't get the joy. And
Yeah.
that's the bit that I think is so important, that we can make such a difference for ourselves on a minute by minute basis almost.
Yeah. Moving on to success then. So what does success look like for you now, and has that changed over the years?
I think it's definitely changed. I think for me, success is being true to myself. When I make a decision, when I do something, when I put myself forward, the success is that I'm doing what's right for me, and I'm not listening to or paying less attention to the internal chit chat that says, you're not good enough, and all the things that I used to listen to. And being able to be that, I think, is my success. And then anything else around it, I'm not driven by sort of financial success, even though obviously it's great when you're doing well. But for me, it's the being able to be that true self and make good decisions and know that I'm doing something that's right for me. And then I also get success when someone else has success.
Yeah. You get second-hand success
I do,
as
yeah.
well.
For me, when somebody else is, like I said before, rings up and says, this has happened, and they're really pleased with themselves, and they're noticing that they've done this thing, then to me that's like a big...
Yeah. And how's that different to when you were young, do you think?
I think when I was younger, I look back, I think, I was so lost. On the outside, I looked very chatty and confident, and on the inside, it was a whole different story. I think success, I was looking for external reassurance, external love, external pointers that would validate my success. But actually, it's internal.
Yeah.
And I think realising that yes, of course, it's nice when someone says, well done. I mean, yesterday I got a business award, a UK business award, which I'm absolutely blown away by.
Well done.
So, external validation. But actually, the power of that comes from knowing, do you know what? Yeah, I have worked hard for that.
Yeah.
And I do deserve it. And I think that then. The other is brilliant because it comes external and, people are really pleased for you. But it's lost if you don't believe it.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing for you to actually take that award and go, yeah, I really deserve this. It's actually really powerful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Instead of just going, oh, well, somebody, I've just, you could really brush it off.
So people do.
Yeah.
And I think when you're doing the brushing off, when you've got other people saying, well done, you'll push that away too. Because what you're believing doesn't fit with what they're saying. So actually, when I look on my socials, because I put it out there yesterday because I was totally surprised, and what's coming in, I can accept it.
Yeah.
Because I'm aligned to what they're saying.
Yeah.
And that's where reward or comments, compliments, often you can tell if you're not feeling internally confident if you find compliments difficult. Because the reason why you don't like it is because it's not aligning to you.
Yeah.
So if you don't think your hair looks nice, and someone says, "Oh, your hair looks nice," you'll say, "Oh no, it needs cutting or it needs washing or whatever," because you don't see that.
Yeah.
So when you are able to, when somebody gives you a compliment and you're able to say, "Thank you, I genuinely appreciate that," that means that whatever it is that they're complimenting on, you're aligned to. You're feeling that too. So sometimes success comes from even noticing when someone else says, "That's amazing," you say, "I know, thanks."
Yeah.
And we don't do it.
No.
We do not do it. Women are terrible for it. If someone says they like your dress,
From
some
Primark,
yeah,
£10,
exactly. So, "Oh, it's only from Asda."
Yeah.
No, just say thank you, because from a brain perspective, you get a buzz
Yeah.
if you're able to accept that. But I think having that relationship for yourself around your success, whatever that might look like, I think really helps you see, and you're able to say thank you for that. Noticing that, it might be your partner says something nice. Have it. Try and work with it. Try and feel comfortable with it, and then eventually you'll be like, yeah. Because if I look back to my former self and think that I was going to get a National Executive Coach of the Year award, oh my God, I would never have even dreamed of getting something like that at all. And what I like about this award is it's very genuine in that the company they do all the research. The judges have read. I mean, the guy yesterday, when he told me I'd won, told me all of the things that they've seen. They've been following me.
Right. So
The judges have seen. They were telling me about that. This. He listed all these things, and they're not all in one place. So he's not just reading off. He had bits from social media. He had bits from this, bits from that. And he said, the judges noticed that you've this. I was like, wow.
So it's it's validated.
It feels even more like okay, because they've looked at me over the last year or so, and they were able to tell me why the judges have picked me and what it is that's made the difference with why I've been picked compared to probably other people that they're looking at. So so that makes it, for me, that's the bit that blows me away, is that I've genuinely, and it's like, me, and I could say, "Oh, little old me," and it's like, well, actually, no, I've been doing this for a long time.
Put the graft in.
Yeah, I have put the graft in, and I'm like, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I love that. That's actually quite blown my mind as a piece of wisdom to end on, in terms of how you receive a compliment is a good indicator of where you are in your own alignment.
Yep.
And I think that's a real gem. So thank you for that. So our final question we always ask is, what would your younger self say if they could see you now? So what would young, unconfident Alison say if she could see you walking up and receiving that award?
I know. Wow, I think she would. I think she'd say, I think she would be like, we always I think I always knew that it wasn't quite right. I think my younger self would say, you know what? Yeah, we knew that you could, and yet was just clouded with all of this doubt and all of this uncertainty, and I wasn't encouraged, I was criticised. So there's no wonder I did kind of end up like I did for a long time. But just, yeah, to be able to be like, you know what, and I believe that for everyone.
Yeah.
You know, that's not my unique story. I do believe that we have all got an amazing purpose and an amazing gift to give to the world, and the more that we have people who are doing that, the better the world becomes. When everybody is doing their contribution, their special gift. And that's a journey to find that. But I think, you know, if we were all doing that, that means we would all be much happier, we'd all be more content, and the ripple effect then, it would be just magic.
Yeah, we'd definitely live in a much better world,
Wouldn't we?
Yeah, I love that. So, perfect way to end. Thank you for that. So can you tell us where people can find you, and also to perhaps tell us about your books quickly as well?
Yeah, of course. So my website is www.2-minds.co.uk, and I guess everything's on there. So obviously I've got all the socials, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. I do have a podcast as well that I've done 50 episodes, which is called Mental Wealth, the podcast to invest in your mind.
Great name, I like that.
And I've also got 2 books. They are self-help books. They are a journey. They are my journey, not written in my journey way. So they are a self-help book, but they very much help us understand ourselves. So the first one is called A Path Travelled, How to Make Sense of Your Life. And that takes you on a journey to understand this piece of kit, how the past will affect us, and how we can then, and what we would expect to see. So the people pleasing and the fear of rejection, all the things that we all do. I like to explain the relationship we have with the way that we're wired, and then you, because that combination is your day-to-day experience. Yeah. So some of it's just the way we're wired, let's understand that, and some of it's because of what's happened to you. Yeah. And when we understand that, we can make it. And then I also wrote a second book about relationships, so the highs and lows of relationships, how to get out of a bad one, the traps of new love, dysfunctional relationships, and how to have a better relationship. But to be honest, that book, just like the other one, a good relationship comes from having a good relationship with yourself. Always.
Yeah. Spot on. I love that. So thank you very much for being a guest. That's been really insightful today, and can't wait for this one to come out.
Brilliant. Thank you for having me.